right, let's talk about the book that might end up being the most decisive comic of the week. And of course, I'm talking about Absolute Green Arrow #1, because this is not your typical Green Arrow story. No trick arrows, no billionaire playboy energy, no classic superhero vibes. This thing feels more like a straight up horror thriller wearing a Green Arrow mask. And honestly, I kind of dig it. DC's Absolute Universe has been swinging big lately, and this might be one of the boldest swings yet. So the question is, does this book actually reinvent the Green Arrow wheel in a cool way, or does it completely miss the point of the character? We're going to find the answers to that and so much more as we dive deep into the pages right now of Absolute Green Arrow, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about this. Here's the A cover, Absolute Green Arrow, and we open up on Star City as we see this red liquid drip down and hit the table. Then it kind of pans out a little bit and we see it running down this gentleman's face. Then it pans out a little bit more to see this gentleman sitting at the table drinking, and he's on the phone, and the guy on the phone says, dude, what are they gonna do? And this guy drinking the wine says, anyone tries anything, they'll end up like Oliver Queen. You saw what Hammond did to him. We pan out a little bit more. We see a bunch of wine bottles as he's still on the phone with the security guard behind him. And he says, you kidding? I wanted to watch. Least Hammond could do after I gave $300 million to that pact of his. Queen took my company. Then we kind of zoom in, tighten in a little bit on the face, and we see the security guard looking very kind of Kingpin-ish X back there. He says, yeah, the new guards are Hammond's personal stock, totally ex-military. We zoom in a little bit further on that guard, and it says, like legit killers who have toppled governments. And then all of a sudden, everything goes red, and you get thunk as this arrow goes through this guy's head, and he's just in pure terror. And I love the way this panel is all red, and the arrow and the thunk are the only things in green. It's fantastic. We see this guy's head just pinned up against the wall as we find out, as this guy freaks out and he says, what the hell, and drops his phone, and you hear Jabal coming through the phone. He says, hello, as the phone hits the ground, and he's like, no, 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 as he rushes out the room. And he rushes into the other room where the rest of the security guard detail is, and he says, guys, some maniacs, oh God. And you see that everyone has been killed, arrows through the head. And then from the side, you hear, Mr. Slade. And you hear, stay back, as we see this arrow in this bodyguard's back. And he looks at Slade, and it shows the reverse of the mirror. And he says, as his face is kind of like reptilian or bubbling, like he's been poisoned. And you see Mr. Jabal Slade's face in pure shock and terror. And what's up with this little like random ass floating hand right here? I don't know, but I digress. And Slade's like, hey, whoever you are, I'll pay you whatever, okay? Just tell me what you want. And the green arrow appears behind Slade, and he says, an example. And then we get the slash with this red like splotch here that shows that Absolute Green Arrow delivered the killing blow. And then we kind of get this news report that says details are still unreleased concerning the death of billionaire Jabal Slade, a tech entrepreneur best known for his co-founder of the electronics trading platform Green Arrows Trading. And then it kind of cuts to the scene where, you know, most people are consuming their media through like TikTok or YouTube or Instagram nowadays. So we kind of get like this reels, all these different shots of these phones of somebody watching reels. And we get one from the early show that says Jabal Slade made headlines after his public feud with Green Arrow's co-founder Oliver Queen, leading Slade to leave the billion-dollar company. He most recently became the subject of controversy after numerous allegations of sexual misconduct resurfaced. And then we get to another reel about a gentleman talking about this. He says, probably get shadow banned again, but anybody else sick of corporate media talking about Jabal Slade's allegations of sexual misconduct? Like multiple women accused him of SA, not including rumors he was trafficking minors to his own island. So again, DC continues their trend lately of making references to some of their characters being very Epstein-esque or into like those shady Epstein type deals. It's interesting that DC continues going back to this Epstein well and trying to make references to the Jeffrey Epstein situation. I guess maybe it's just because it's like really in the forefront of all of our news media right now and kind of driving force behind everything, and it's really hot button topic and on the nose. So they're gonna milk that bad boy for all it's worth, I guess. So we come down to another one. It says TFW, a local human trafficker with multiple rape allegations, gets unalived and you're supposed to feel bad. And then we get another one here that says, that's Oliver Queen, co-founder of Green Arrows Trading, the stock app. His recent murder was unsolved, and now less than a year later, his ex-partner is murdered too. Guys, we really don't think that there's a bigger story here. So let me get to this party. And we see this group of people just taking pictures of these two girls and someone like a bodyguard. And we get this study in Berkeley found that making people think about money. And we get Bria, sign mine. And the voiceover continues by saying, by just innocently sitting them near a screensaver, showing dollar bills had an antisocial effect. Brianna, over here. And Brianna says, hey, does our lady guard not know how to talk? She doesn't even say excuse me when she bumps into you. And then someone pushes this bodyguard and says, will you move? And the voiceover continues on and says, it made them less invested when helping an assistant who dropped things near them. Another study shows people primed to think of themselves as upper class are more likely to take candy from a jar labeled for kids. And this person with the phone says, you're in the way, you stupid dumb. And this security guard just hauls off and absolutely wrecks this dude's face, sending the phone flying. And it continues on and says, more likely to take candy from babies. And we get this voiceover at the bottom of the image that says, I'm shocked you were just suspended. We get the title card, Absolute Green Arrow, The Longbow Killer, Chapter 1. And we get this voice that says, exhale, Dinah, come on. You promised Dad you'd try talking to Dr. Green. So Dinah Lance is who that bodyguard is. And she's sitting here on the phone with her therapist. And Dinah Lance says, guess the pop star liked me. And her therapist said, it'd be easy to find out if you did. You know, you said you're allowed to talk to your clients, to share your thoughts. And Dinah's like, And the doctor says, last time we talked about how all this might be connected, what happened after your mother? And Dinah says, you want to know my thoughts? I read online about this professor who studies social neuroscience. She says he found having more money tends to suppress the mirror neuron system, the part of the brain that allows us to put ourselves in someone else's shoes to show empathy. So she continues on and says, and why should they? The rich always get what they want. So when I work for the obnoxiously loaded ones, I try not to care. I shut up and do my job. And the therapist says, and it makes you angry you can't do more? And Dinah says, I'm not. I'm just tired. And the therapist interjects and says, last session you used the word numb. And Dinah's like, sure. The therapist says, Dinah, if you hate your work, you can quit. And Dinah says, right, in this economy? And the therapist says, is it worth being miserable? You said you made decent money as an MMA fighter. And Dinah kind of looks around, just thinking. And she responds, she says, not decent enough. And the therapist says, how's your father doing? Kind of switching subjects. So Dinah continues on and says, he's taking the new medication. Insurance barely covers that, but we save with me living at home again. And so now we're starting to get themes here of like very much like what was going on with the healthcare industry and the Luigi Mangione stuff, and now Jeffrey Epstein. So we're kind of getting a mix of like some of the biggest like political news stories that are affecting everyday people in a lot of ways. Like the Jeffrey Epstein is kind of on the tip of everyone's tongue and what everyone jokes about and real pop culture, real meta right now, I guess. And kind of the same thing is like as we're watching the Luigi Mangione trial starting to kick off and things like that. And that's kind of been in the news lately. We're starting to see DC really tap into both of these like real on the nose pop culture moments as of late. So getting back into the issue here, Dinah continues on and says, and the bodyguard gig pays well. The world's got a ton of rich jerks, so I suck it up for Dad. And she says, of course, now I'm suspended, but there's this sister firm offering me some special assignment. No idea what, but guess I'll find out when I meet this Malcolm Merlin guy. So we get our introduction to the Absolute Universe's Malcolm Merlin. And we see the Hammond building, and from the Hammond building, it says, your file says your former Star City Police turned rising star MMA fighter, Dinah Black Canary Lance, turned executive protection specialist. And so then we get this voiceover from Dinah, and it says, apparently the promotion this sister firm is offering is to protect one of America's most loathed men. Tyler Pharmaceuticals made billions covering up the highly addictive nature of their opioid-based medications, resulting in 1 million deaths and 5 times as many addictions until a class action lawsuit. And Malcolm Merlin says, quite the path. And then we kind of get the voiceover again. It says, but CEO Reese Tyler filed for bankruptcy, letting his billionaire friends Hector Hammond buy out his assets and installed Tyler as the new head of Hammond Pharmaceuticals. Tyler avoided a settlement and profited off the lawsuit, the rich bailing out the rich. And Dinah says, Mr. Merlin, you want me to protect him? I got suspended guarding a pop star. And Merlin says, Miss Lance, did you talk to Oliver Queen before he died? Or Jabal Slade? And kind of taken back, Dinah's like, what? Geez, I haven't talked to either since we were neighbors. So then we jump back 8 years ago and we see Dinah in bed with Oliver Queen. And Oliver says, hey, did you know if 100% of Americans want a bill passed, there's a 30% chance Congress will pass it. And if 0% want a bill passed, there's still a 30% chance Congress will pass it. And Dinah interjects and says, because there's no cap on how much corporations can spend on lobbyists or election influences. Oliver says, because there's no cap, ... Yeah. And she continues on, and we get the voiceover again. Says, Ollie moved into the apartment next door. He was an annoying, self-righteous loudmouth who wouldn't shut up. And she's like, come here, is he going for a kiss? And she said, we were dating within a month. And then we see them about to get to the deed, some marital, some coitus, when Jabal busts in. And he says, I didn't see anything, dude. I didn't see anything. And Oliver's like, Jabal, knocking, we've talked about it. And Jabal's like, I know, but I think I've got a prototype for the app. And Ollie's like, already? Sweet. Dinah, I tell you about green arrows? It's my idea, but Jabal's the coding mastermind. He continues on and says, it's an easy to navigate stock trading app that doesn't charge fees the way online brokers do. So think Robinhood. And if we can add no account minimums, it could democratize trading. And Jabal's like, okay, dude, I'll get back to coding. You guys go back to, exercise. Don't worry, I won't listen. And Dinah's like, he needs to get out more, Ollie. And Ollie's like, I've tried. He just stares at girls at parties. And he says, and then comes home angry they don't talk to him. So you're starting a business with him? And Ollie says, we've been roommates since college. He's harmless. But this app, it could give regular people better access to money. And that's how real change starts. Working the system because redistributing wealth. And Dinah's like, means redistributing power. And then we get the voiceover and she says, Ollie and me wanted to make a difference. And Ollie did. He raised the financing for Jabal's app. He always could convince people to take a chance. He says the Green Arrow trading app launched to over 250,000 signups within the first month. People are hungry for a cheaper way to invest. As we see Oliver there in Green Arrow trading, kind of think like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak-esque. She continues on and says, of course, by that point, I was long gone, having caught Oliver cheating on me. She said 10 million users later, Ollie and Jabal had transformed the online brokerage industry and became billionaires. Ollie branded his logo, those green arrows, on everything, becoming the operation's handsome face, which probably made it easier to push Jabal out after the allegations rolled in, because Ollie was still trying to do the right thing. So we're getting a very different origin for this Oliver Queen, right? The traditional origin is that Oliver Queen was a billionaire, the son of a billionaire, and he was on a boat and got stranded on an island, and he spent years on this island honing his skills and training and everything like that, where this version of Oliver Queen is very much like a tech bro. He's very much a tech genius who kind of fell into this tech company because he wanted to be self-righteous and, basically Robinhood, steal from the rich to give to the poor, and make this app like Robinhood to allow people better access to money in the stock market and kind of make it an even playing field and get the little man into the stock market a little bit. So she continues on and says, a few months ago, his dead body washed up on the shores, his head bashed in. If we go back to that Absolute Evil issue where we saw Hawkman kill him, she continues on and says, it was rumored he was attacked on his yacht, but no one really knew. So we still get a little bit of aspects of his original origin there, with that big twist that instead of washing up on an island alive, he is in fact dead. She continued on and says, I inhale every online theory. You do that when your ex-boyfriend's a murdered billionaire. So then we cut back to this shot of Dinah sitting in Merlin's office, and she says, because once upon a time, I knew Oliver Queen better than he knew himself, that despite his many, many, many flaws, he'd always be a good man trying to fight the good fight. And she says out loud, this job's related to Jabal's murder. And Merlin says, we want to increase the protection detail around Tyler and my boss. And Dinah's like, your boss, Hector Hammond? Why does he think the killer's targeting him? And Merlin says, not our job, Miss Lance. The principal thinks they're in danger. We protect no matter what. And Merlin continues on and says, we've combed through every executive protection specialist in our extended network, looking for anyone with law enforcement experience to not just protect the client, but find this killer. You were suggested not only because you were a police, but because you knew Oliver Queen and Slade. And Dinah says, and you think their deaths are related. And Merlin says, swipe to the next image on your tablet. So we get this image of Jabal sitting in this chair, completely naked, 2 arrows shoved in his eyes, slashes all over his body. And Malcolm continues on and says, police responders found Jabal Slade's murdered body tied up in his penthouse, riddled with cuts and impaled with 2 green arrows, the logo of his former company. In addition, his eyes were repeatedly stabbed. His fingers were severed with similar damage to his genitals. So whoever did this mutilated his body, cut off his genitals, cut off his fingers, just absolutely mutilated his body. And Dinah said, all the body parts Jabal's allegedly couldn't keep off underage women. And she says out loud, holy, these other files, names attached to these photos, who are they? Roy Harper, Mia Dearden, Tom Holloway, of course we know as Red Arrow, Speedy, and Spider, and the normal DC universe. And Merlin says, a list of suspects my team threw together, a work in progress. The details just leaked this morning with some social media accounts already celebrating it. And Diana's like, they're celebrating torture? And Merlin's like, a trove of leaked emails also hit the internet. It detailed 26 accounts of sexual assault on minors Slade was never held accountable for. But Reese Tyler's guilty of none of this. Help us protect him. So again, there we go back to the Epstein list with the emails and da-da-da-da-da-da. So then we cut to Dinah still looking at Reese Tyler's photo on this tablet, and she says internally, a man who lied to profit off millions of addictions and deaths. Are these our options now? And she says, ignore the monster we work for or throw a watch party for their execution. And Dinah kind of snaps out of it and her eyes get wide. And she's like, no, I can't. And from behind her comes a voice that says, God, Malcolm, it's so dark in here. And you hear Mr. Tyler. So then we get the shot from over Dinah's shoulder as we see these 2 gentlemen walk in the door. And Mr. Tyler says, hey, man, me and Hector wanted to come down here and see how Task Force was doing. And the other guy says, actually, Hector wanted pad thai, but here Hector is. And he's like, oh, is that Dinah Lance? And he says, Hector, I tell you, I found her in my files myself. Oliver Queen's ex-police officer girlfriend is a personal bodyguard while we have a problem with Green Arrow obsessed stalkers. And he's like, Kismet. And Dinah's like, actually, I can't take the assignment. My dad's sick. And Hector's like, what? And he's like, Malcolm, as he demands the file. And Hector Hammond says, why don't you hand me your tablet, sport? And we get this like Walt Disney looking motherfucker here. He's like, so sweetie, become a bodyguard to help pay daddy's doctor bills, huh? And she's like, that's in my file. He's like, no, grown-ups talking. And he says, and I'm guessing insurance covers half daddy's bills. It's never enough, huh? He's like, but work for us, he'll never worry again. And Dinah's like, really? And Hector Hammond says, except, oh no, daddy just lost all coverage. He can't pay for anything now, as he clicks the delete button. And she's like, what? He's like, go home and check, doll, go. So he's obviously like the head of this insurance company, and he just up and canceled her dad's insurance, no questions asked. And then he continues on and says, then take a selfie of your stupid pig face so you remember what a brain dead cow looks like when she refuses kind people making generous offers. So he's just like insulting her for no reason because she's turning him down, right? That's kind of like the whole ideology behind the rich is that like they feel like they can get whatever they want and then they turn into children when they can't get something they want and they get rejected. So he's just turning to insulting her because she rejected him. He's like, and show up on Monday and be grateful we're paying you. And Dinah just looks absolutely disgusted. She's so mad. So we cut back to Dinah's house with her dad, and we get this voiceover again. She said, Dad shook when he told me his insurance was canceled because he knew I took this job protecting people I hated for him. She continued on and said, my father's a 3rd-generation police officer, so being a cop is in his blood. He married one too. I've never seen him so much as tremble. Not even after we learned everything Mom did, because too many wanted to watch him suffer, he said. And us Lances don't dole out that kind of satisfaction as we see him kind of sitting there embracing each other. And she continues on and says, he doesn't believe me when I say it's my fault, because he grew up believing what all good dads believe, that his only job is to make things easier for his kids. And if my life's harder because of him, then he failed in his only real responsibility. And all he wants is for his daughter not to see him cry, as he rests his head on her shoulder, and she embraces him as he's going through this. So then we cut to this warehouse where they're on this job, I'm assuming searching for the Green Arrow, and she continues on and says, which means I need to take money fast and quit this job because Hammond and Tyler are insane. For months, they've been trying to crack the security of Ollie's doomsday bunker, his arrow cave of sorts. And on my first day, she says ... and then we get it's all just archery and man cave crap. And Mr. Hammond says, no, it's here, I know it. Dinah gives this voiceover again. She says, whatever the hell they thought Ollie was hiding here, it was important enough for them to both personally come and look for it. And she says, we damaged the power lines breaking in. Fortunately, these idiots brought enough of their trained killers / bodyguards to keep them ... as we see these arrows fly at her, and she's like, safe. And she turns around and she jumps out of the way. She's like, move, come on. She's like, protect the... And we see that Reese takes an arrow slash to the face as Dinah grabs it out of the air, but he still gets cut. She's like, principal, and breaks the arrow. And she's like, you okay? And Reese is like, of course not, you moron. That thing scratched my... And his face starts melting. He's bleeding from the mouth. And she's like, the arrows, they're poisoned. Don't let the arrowheads even touch you. As we see an arrow fly with a grenade attached to it. It hits this car next to these gas cans and it explodes, blasting everybody away. And then out of the rubble and in the smoking fire, we get the silhouette of the Green Arrow. Arrow knocked, ready to fire off. And internally, Dinah's talking to herself. She says, get up. The killer, Green Arrow, killer, move before he... And we see Green Arrow kind of take his swords out, pull them apart, and he kind of uses them now as like a nunchuck or whip almost, as he's flinging them around, cutting people's heads off. And she's like, oh my God, his form, his speed. Who the hell fights like this? And we see this person just absolutely laying waste to all these bodyguards. And he's like, Hammond. And Dinah thinks, what the hell is he? And Green Arrow says, you know what you did, Oliver Queen. That wasn't me, Hammond says. I didn't kill him. It was Carter. And the Green Arrow cuts his arm off, or hand, and he screams, ah! And Green Arrow says, it doesn't matter. It's time you all finally faced consequences. And Dinah says, wait, was Hammond saying he knows who killed Ollie? And she says, get away from him. And she starts firing at the Green Arrow. And Green Arrow runs off. He says, next time, Hector. And Dinah says, how the hell does this Green Arrow factor into that? So he's like, ugh. And Hammond responds, just wait and see what I slice away. And Dinah stands up over him, and she thinks to herself, and does Hammond know Malcolm's list of suspects? Harper, Dearden, Holloway? Is he one of them? None of them? So Dinah walks over to him and she continues on and says, because I don't know what's more disturbing, as he's begging her for help and to please help her. She ties off his bloody stem. Watching Hammond scream as he stares at his bloody stump for an arm after the killer just threatened to hack him to pieces, or knowing I'm smiling watching this monster suffer. So then we cut to later, where Merlin and Dinah are searching around, still searching Oliver's bunker. And she says, after the fire, after Hammond's rushed to the hospital, Merlin and I scoured what's left for clues. I think about how Ollie reacted to someone killing in his name with his symbol. And she says, because I still remember all of our talks about changing things from within and doing the right thing. And then her eyes get big as they find something. And she's like, that wallet's fake. And Merlin's like, the explosion must have jarred it loose. As they look in, and she kind of starts to push it open. And she said, residue shows no one accessed this opening in months, which means this must be what Hammond was looking for. The secret Ollie hid, the man who always tried to do the right thing by working this system. She says, we later verified the boy's body had clearly been dead for a while, although somehow not decomposed. If only that was the strangest part. So they find this young boy's dead body here with all these eyes all over. Like, I don't know if they're in it or tattooed on him or what, but just covered in all these eyes. It almost looks like a mutation. And Dinah looks absolutely terrified. She says, damn it, Ollie, what the hell were you up to? And that's where Absolute Green Arrow #1 ends. Phenomenal book. Phenomenal. All right, so my final thoughts are this. When it comes to Absolute Green Arrow #1, I found this to be a really smart reinvention of Oliver Queen that strips away a lot of the billionaire swagger and turns him into something closer to a paranoid urban hunter surviving inside of a broken system. Instead of leaning on the usual rich playboy turned hero angle, this Absolute Universe version feels rougher, angrier, and way more desperate, which honestly fits the tone of this Absolute Universe when you really think about it. The Absolute Universe version of Oliver Queen actually feels dangerous again. This version of Green Arrow isn't quippy. He isn't polished. He feels like someone who's been surviving in the dark for a really long time. And you have that anti-establishment theme hitting really hard. Like Absolute Superman and Absolute Batman, this comic leans into the classic tensions and corruptions in a way that makes Ollie's politics feel relevant instead of performative. Raphael Albuquerque's art is incredible. Gotham level grime mixed with Neon City decay gives this book a gritty, almost cyberpunkish edge that fits this Green Arrow version surprisingly well. And the Absolute Universe keeps feeling distinct and different from your DC mainline. DC continues doing a great job making these books feel like reinterpretations instead of just edgy reskins. But with everything that works, there's things that don't work. And you do have a lot of setup here. This issue is very setup heavy. This issue spends a lot of time establishing the new status quo and less time delivering a huge standalone story. And for some people, this might be too grim for a classic Green Arrow fan. If you love the more charismatic, socially outspoken Oliver Queen from the main DC universe, this colder version may take some getting used to. And it's not super accessible for the casual reader. Like most Absolute books, it kind of assumes you're already brought into the vibe of this universe because you've been reading Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Martian Manhunter, and Absolute Flash before diving into Absolute Green Arrow. But the bottom line for me is that when it came to Absolute Green Arrow #1, it is a strong, gritty reimagining that proves Green Arrow can absolutely work in the darker, more grounded Absolute universe. It's less Robin Hood with trick arrows and more urban survivalist fighting a corrupt machine. And honestly, that shift gives this character fresh energy. With all that being said, I'm giving Absolute Green Arrow #1 an 8.5 out of 10 because I absolutely loved it. I can't wait for issue 2. I'm so sad that this is only a 6-issue miniseries because I feel like there's still a lot of meat that's going to be left in the bone once this is all said and done. I hope that's not the case, but I am here for this ride. As of right now, I am here for all 6 issues. But let me know in the comment section below, what did you think of Absolute Green Arrow? Are you checking it out? Are you going to check out issue 2? Let me know all that and so much more down below because again, this is a community. It's about the conversation and I want to have it with you. But with that being said, 8.5 out of 10 is my review. We're going to go ahead and get out of here, but do me a favor before we do. Make sure to hit that like button, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and turn that notification bell on so you know whenever we upload another one of these deep dive comic book review videos. And with that being said, remember to stay geeky, remember to stay absolute, and we'll see you guys next time around the spinner rack.